In today's video, what is the best diet for fat loss?
All by myself.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and in today's video, I'm going to address the question of what in fact is the best diet for fat loss, or what is the best approach for fat loss. And the question came from my Instagram direct message. So if you're interested in asking me a question, please go here on the screen to my Instagram. And if you're interested in information like this about nutrition and training, how to build muscle, lose fat, stay lean, well, please hit the subscribe button because that makes my day. Now, let me read the question. I'm really confused about the whole keto or low carb or calorie and having to fast. What should I do? Lots of question marks. I just want to lose fat. I have some long distance running goals. I'm a happier runner on carbs, but I also feel like carbs are the devil now, especially since some close family members have lost a lot of weight doing keto. I'm almost 49 years old, 5'5", 170 pounds, and my goal is to be 140 pounds or less. I've never really been into weights and sets and reps or counting calories, but I am now. I'm really into it, and it's working out great with my training runs, meaning I feel really good. But I just started and I'm already wondering, am I doing this right to lose fat as my main goal? Let's talk a little bit about this idea of fat loss diets, because the research out there on fat loss diets, or people taking an approach to fat loss that is primarily based around the diet, the numbers are shuddering. As much as 95% of people fail to keep the weight off that they lost, with the majority of them actually ending up heavier than they were before. And I want to explain why that is before I tell you exactly what the best diet is going to be for fat loss. The first reason is that dieting makes food harder to resist. The first thing we do when we start a diet is we start restricting, mentally and physically, restricting ourselves from eating certain things. That mental restriction immediately makes that food more attractive. This is one of the biggest reasons we have issues with diets, is that we put ourselves into a dieting situation where entire food groups are off limits, meaning we certainly associate those foods with a negative connotation. They are bad diet foods. They are bad for us. Meaning when we have them, we're more likely to just go all in on them because we have to go back on our diet shortly after. This leads me into my second negative of a diet, meaning that we start to put foods into two categories: healthy, unhealthy, good for us, bad for us, skinny, fattening. This is not the case. Food is simply a caloric value. It is something that our body takes in, breaks down, and uses. Yes, some foods are going to be easier to overconsume. Some foods are going to be harder to overconsume. So we start to put those into unilateral associations. But my goal as a coach, and what I would like you to do, is not do that. When we start talking about diets, and the most popular ones that are going around right now would be things like a ketogenic diet, perhaps a fasting diet. Maybe you want to go on a vegan or vegetarian approach. Maybe you want to go on a low carb or like a carnivore type diet. But to lose weight, no matter what diet you're on, you need to be in a caloric deficit. And that the 24-hour caloric intake versus caloric usage is what drives change. Insulin in itself is not a bad thing. It simply drives the glucose in our blood into our cells. Those cells mostly being muscle, liver, and body fat. It's been very demonized, but I am a coach that prescribes the highest carbohydrates possible within my macronutrient goals. Why? Because I work with people that are interested in performance, and you, my friend, sound like you're interested in your performance. So I would suggest you continue to not avoid carbohydrates, but fit them into your daily caloric goals with your macronutrient ratios being what they will be, and I'll explain that shortly. No matter what diet you enter, whether it be a ketogenic diet, whether it be a fasting diet, vegan diet, our metabolisms are going to adapt as we restrict calories. There is no way to prevent this. And in fact, it's quite normal and it's quite healthy. This is another thing that makes staying leaner hard, because as our metabolisms adapt, that means it's a lot easier to store body fat eating a caloric intake that previously might have only maintained our body fat. This is another mechanism that is designed around survival. But what some diets profess to do is prevent a metabolic change. This is not the case. No diet that restricts calories is going to prevent a metabolic adaptation. But this should not be the goal, and you should not be trying to avoid changes to your metabolism. So why would someone choose a diet like keto? You mentioned that your family is entering a ketogenic diet. Well, keto, fasting, these types of diets basically force you to eliminate a large group of foods. And when you do that, you thus enter a period of caloric restrictions. Now, there may be some other benefits. Ketogenic diets have been shown to kind of prevent some hunger. Fasting, same thing. You change the pattern at which you eat. You change the pattern at which you get hungry. But there is no magic to either of these approaches. But what's magic for anyone is what I'm going to tell you now. The approach that is most sustainable for you is the one you should take. That is the magic diet. The diet is going to get you to your goal, is the one that you can see yourself doing for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Why do I not use a ketogenic diet? Well, eating 80% of my calories from fats and basically avoiding carbohydrates for the rest of my life is not something I want to do. It's not a part of my lifestyle. Therefore, it will not be sustainable. Neither will a low carbohydrate diet. I've tried fasting diets. They did not work for me either. I like to space my meals out 4 to 5 hours at a time, getting a large amount of protein, enough carbohydrates, preferably around my workouts to make sure my training is going well. I space out my fats to make sure my digestion. This type of diet for me has been very sustainable for a long period of time, and it allows me to both feel good, enjoy my food, and make a sustainable lifestyle out of this. That is the magic diet. That is the one that is going to get you to where you're going. I think fasting is a great idea. I think keto is a great idea. I think my client Natalie, who's on the thumbnail of this video, who does vegan, has a great approach. Because all of us that are using a diet that we believe in and that is sustainable is going to get us to our goals. It's going to help us maintain the weight that we reach after we have lost the fat and got to where we want to be. This should be the gold standard by which all diets are measured. No one should be shouting from their corner of the world saying this is the best diet and the only diet. Just because something works for you does not mean it's going to work for everyone else. There is too much individuality in the world. So while I appreciate your family telling you that they're doing a ketogenic diet and it's working, that's great. You're having some performance. You're focusing on your times. Carbohydrates are going to be a great way to do this. What I would typically do is create a caloric profile and a macronutrient profile around your goals. Now, you said you want to be 140 pounds. I would certainly keep your protein above 140 grams per day, probably 150 to 160. I would then create the rest of your calories, about 25% of them coming from fats. The rest of your caloric needs I would have coming from carbohydrates, with 25 to 35% of your carbohydrates being pre and post workout. Now, if you work out early in the morning and you don't want to eat, fine. I have been getting up super early, training at 5:30 in the morning, and guess what? I can't eat that early, so I just have a pre-workout drink and then I eat my breakfast after. Does that mean that training fasted is better? No, it means it's the best way for me right now. I used to train at 6 o'clock at night and I had tons of meals before then. Both approaches work great. My point here, as I've been making this entire video, find a sustainable approach that works for you. Don't get caught up in all the noise and you're gonna keep making progress. All right, my friend, have a great day and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.